Where can I find this world government? Its mission is on our planet. Therefore, its seat is not somewhere in heaven, but down here on earth. Namely, in Shambhala, a remote, inaccessible bulwark in the Himalayas. The geographer can be set at ease. We do occupy a definite place on the earth. Since the most ancient times, all peoples know, and many legends tell, about this sacred place. Including, in the West, the novel of James Hilton about Shangri-La, The Lost Horizon. Lamas speak about the abode of the great rishis. Each one describes Shambhala according to his own understanding. Even ancient Mexico knew about the sacred mountain where the chosen people live. It is not surprising that all Asian nations preserve legends about the sacred mountain. It is described almost correctly. Shambhala is a very special place, namely in the spiritual sense, the highest on our planet. Here, heaven touches earth. Just as we share in the destiny of the planet, so we also partake of the beauty of the infinite. At this point, the material and the spiritual world merge. The beings dwelling here are living partly in the one and partly in the other sphere. Some are physically incarnated, others act in the subtle body. Our abode is at the borderline between the physical and the subtle worlds. The Tower of Chung is the center of the three worlds. This unity is possible because some of the masters, although still in their physical bodies, can manifest in their subtle bodies, whereas others, in their subtle bodies, have the power to approach the physical world. In this sacred place, the conditions, the laws of both levels prevail. Here, in fact, heaven, the kingdom of God, has become a reality on earth. Shambhala is the indispensable site where the spiritual world unites with the material one. The gates of the spiritual world open into the mountain dwelling. But to work there where the spirit has descended into matter, the conditions of both planes must be met. Some consider us to be hermits of Kailash, while others think that we are beings of the subtle world. Such distinctions destroy the synthesis of our existence. If our center exists as the link between the worlds, in it must be expressed the conditions of both worlds, physical and subtle. A symbol of the world government is the Potala Palace in Lhasa, which was, before the Dalai Lama escaped, the seat of the secular and spiritual government of Tibet. About like this, you may imagine the main bulwark from which the Brotherhood, with numerous co-workers, exerts the spiritual and secular guidance of the earth. The Mahatmas had at all times branches and ashrams in the most diverse countries of the world. In addition to our eastern ashrams, we have had our abodes in western cities, in Lyon, in Nuremberg, in places near London, near St. Petersburg, and in Italy. Besides the Oriental and Egyptian ashrams, it was necessary to have strongholds in some big cities. Unfortunately, to the great detriment of humanity, the terrible conditions of today's time forced the masters to give up all the other bases. Many ashrams were transferred to the Himalayas because the atmosphere of the other locations had become intolerable. The last Egyptian ashram was transferred to the Himalayas because of the well-known events in Egypt and the adjoining regions. At the beginning of Armageddon, all the ashrams had to be gathered together in the abode in the Himalayas. Why is a seat of the hierarchy on earth necessary? Because you can advance the earth only by earthly means, with human hands and feet. No stranger, no alien can take over the government of humanity. Whoever wants to lead us must know our everyday needs, worries, and hardships, and has to participate in our work. History shows a government that became estranged from the people has as yet always failed. This also applies to the masters of the higher levels. They too, who have long since earned the right to live in higher worlds under better conditions, have no choice but to adapt to the miserable earthly situation if they want to render assistance here. For earth, all must be accomplished upon the earthly plane. Therein is the chief reason for the existence of the Brotherhood here. Therefore, upon earth, one must reach us, discover us, as silver ore, the best beneath the earthly crust. Those who fulfill an earthly mission do so under earthly conditions. Everyone, when clad in an earthly sheath, is subject to the conditions of the physical world. Contrary to the allegations of some ignorants or impostors who pretend to have met a Mahatma on the street, the brothers almost never leave Shambhala. It should be known that at present we do not leave our abode, and we go to distant places only in our subtle bodies. The masters are far too advanced to appear in the terrible conditions of today's cities. They must therefore leave the work among the people largely to their disciples and closest co-workers. The Mahatmas of the Himalayas are unable to contact the auras of earth dwellers for long. They cannot even remain in the atmosphere of the valleys, owing to the lack of correspondence in vibrations. Neither Buddha nor Christ were able to remain for long in the cities and amidst people, and often had to retire into the desert. If we are honest, we have to admit we do not recognize today any people or communities mature enough to be personally led by a Mahatma, and no places either which offer conditions pure enough so that he could be physically living there. You should imagine a Mahatma as a great teacher in his ashram, like the proverbial old man on the mountain. He does not descend into the lowlands of the world. Disciples and people must go to him if they are looking for instructions or guidance. The connection is not established physically, but in spirit. The model for this are the hour-long conversations that Helena Röhrig had with her non-incarnated teacher almost daily over many years. Few people know that the books of Agni Yoga are just a small selection from a much larger number of messages published under the title of The Diaries of Helena Röhrig. There, the Master gave not only instructions intended for the whole of humanity, but also advice, help, and guidance for members of the Röhrig family in very practical, personal, everyday matters. Spiritual communication with the lords of this planet. This is the way in which mankind will be led in the future. Isn't that pure fantasy? No. Many people have used this means at all times. Not only the great saints have submitted to higher guidance. Also philosophers like Socrates and Plato, or statesmen like Oliver Cromwell or Napoleon, have been led by their genius. Our task on the path to the new man is to consciously develop the ability to receive inspiration from the spiritual leaders of mankind. It is difficult to imagine gods who are dwelling, living and working like humans on our earth. Yes, in all cultures, over the centuries, the traditional churches have done a lot of harm by glorifying sons of God such as Buddha, Jesus and Mohammed, moving them far away from people to inaccessible heights and lifting them up into heaven. For this reason, approaching them, let alone cooperating with them, is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Thus, today, we find ourselves deprived of the connection with the heavenly spheres and powers. Alas, people have too often pictured us as celestial beings, but nothing good can be derived from such an idea, for it appears to isolate us from Earth. As opposed to that, Agni Yoga describes a very natural way of life of the rulers of this world, completely adapted to the earthly conditions. In Shambhala, the sisters, brothers, and their co-workers are engaged in a wide variety of activities in all areas of earthly life. They are not only teachers and educators, but also philosophers, statesmen, warriors, healers, priests, artists, craftsmen, technicians, scientists, and researchers. Each of them strives to advance humanity in his field. Let us cite the example of our community. Our friend, the chemist V, wishes to occupy himself with a new analysis of rays. No one prevents him. Our friend K wishes to improve the radio by applying new light waves. No one hinders him. Our sister P is occupied with the social problem of a neighboring country. No one interferes with her. Our sister U is occupied with agriculture and introduces many adaptations. No one hinders her. Sister O loves medicinal plants and problems of education. No one hampers her. Brother H has devised a remarkable loom and also works on the reorganization of communities. Brother M is occupied with historical researches. Our shoemaker writes remarkable philosophical treatises. Each one decisively finds work to suit himself and can change it at will. The Brotherhood operates libraries and laboratories where it conducts scientific experiments using a variety of highly sophisticated devices. It also maintains archives for the storage of the treasures of mankind threatened by destruction. The Brotherhood has preserved invaluable memorials of the most ancient times. There are people who have seen these many-storied repositories. We have saved many works of art. Our repositories are filled with objects that people considered lost. Exactly like we humans, the gods in Shambhala require food, clothing, and housing. In addition, of course, books, kitchens, sanitary facilities, technical equipment, craftsmen for repairs, and much more of the like. How do the Mahatmas procure all that? Well, they need money, and like we ordinary people have to buy a lot of things which they do not manufacture themselves. Our apparatuses may require supplies from the cities. Sometimes buyers obtain certain things whose use is unknown even to them, and send such purchases to us through Nepal. I can tell you this because there is no danger that the route will be discovered. Urusvati has asked about the means of material support for our abodes. Remember that many streams are filled with gold. Silver and sapphires can be found in our mountains, and we know about many hidden treasures. They may even fall ill when they are exposed to the bad radiations of the earthly sphere for too long a time. Brother K fell ill while fulfilling his mission on the earthly plane. When my brother sojourned in the earthly spheres, he paid heavily